Episode 61 was with Kelly of The Dollyrots.
Adam was able to talk to her on the phone and check out their latest vinyl called Make Me Hot, and it has a really awesome cover to Lisa Loeb's Stay, so check it out.
Make sure to follow us on Facebook and YouTube at Bringing It Backwards and on Instagram and Twitter at bringinbackpod.
Follow us, please.
We're Bringing It Backwards with Kelly from The Dollyrots.
Hey.
Hi.
Hey. Oh, I set an alarm so I wouldn't forget. If you heard that, that's what just happened.
Oh, I didn't hear it. No.
Okay, good.
Are you originally from Florida?
I was born in New Jersey.
Okay.
And then my parents moved to Florida when I was like 6 weeks old.
Oh,
so
wow. So you're born in Jersey.
I'm pretty much a Floridian.
Sure.
Yeah. But, you know, every summer I'd go up. Both of my parents were from Jersey. My mom grew up in Jersey City and my dad grew up in Bergen County. And so every summer I would go up for 2 weeks and I'd spend like a week with my dad's family and a week with my mom's. And so
That's
I did
nice.
spend a lot of time up there. But,
Yeah.
But yeah, grew up in a tiny old cow town outside of Tampa.
Okay.
So,
And
yeah.
how'd you get into music? Was your family in musical at all, or how did that happen for you?
Not particularly. My mom's dad, who watched me a lot when I was a kid. My mom was a nurse, and when I was little, she worked nights. And my dad had a furniture making business, and so my mom's parents would watch me and my little sister a lot. And my grandpa, he had a really good ear. He could sing. He had this little keyboard that he could play just by ear. He never, took lessons or anything. And he could play harmonica. He'd play spoons, and he liked like marching music and traditional Irish music.
Oh, cool.
And German music. He was stationed in Germany in World War II. So
Oh,
we
wow.
knew a lot of that too.
Yeah.
So it was cool. I kind of grew up like that. My dad had an amazing singing voice. And he whistled a lot. And so, we always listen to Top 40 radio in the car as a family. And,
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, I picked up guitar to impress a boy who was in a band when I was about 16.
Oh, really? So that was your first.
That's really my reason. It was like, well, I want to be one of these cool girls, like Liz Phair and Jewel playing guitar. And so I worked a summer job at a daycare. And I told my parents, I was like, I really want a guitar. And they're like, yeah, okay, we'll see about that. And they're like, all right, well, if you'll pay for half, we'll pay for the other half and 2 months of lessons. And so that was our deal. I went and we had a little music store. It's called Happy Tunes. It's actually still there in Land O'Lakes, Florida.
Oh, wow.
And I walked in and I bought a Samick acoustic guitar. It was $306.
Wow.
And
that's a nice guitar.
Yeah, it was beautiful. I still play it to this day. It's hanging up in my bedroom.
Oh, man, that's amazing.
Yeah, so bought that guitar, and then I asked my now husband, who was in love with me. He swears that in 8th grade he decided he was going to marry me.
So you guys have known each other forever. Wow.
Yeah. So his first day of school, he moved from this city to this cow town. He was so pissed off. He was just like, cool, we were in 8th grade, as cool as you could ever be in 8th grade. But he moved from Texas to Tampa and then from Tampa to Land O'Lakes. And he could not have been more pissed off at his family. Then he shows up at school, first day of school, and it was some weird, science fair kind of day, or it was like a no structure school day. And I remember I had an animal rights booth set up, and he said he decided he was going to marry me that day. And it took until we were leaving for college, pretty much, for me to be like, all right, I'm going to marry you too. And we did. But the poor guy, I tortured him. I knew he liked me a lot. And so he was the only guitar player in school. He was like that kind of alternative gothy kid that would bring his guitar to school and mope around. And, I was like, well, maybe that guy will teach me how to play some stuff, and then I can try and impress this other kid. And so that's kind of how it started. But he was like, I don't want to teach you any of that hippie shit. I want to teach you punk rock. And so the first song I learned was About a Girl by Nirvana.
Wow.
And then Friday, I'm in Love.
The Cure.
And then he agreed to teach me a Jewel song. And
Which Jewel
in
song?
You Were Meant for Me.
You Were Meant for Me?
Yeah, because I wanted to learn fingerstyle because at the time I was very into all of the Woodstock era bands.
Uh-huh.
I just loved all. I loved Melanie and Joni Mitchell and Cat Stevens and Jimi Hendrix, and like I was just very into that era of music, and mostly because of what it stood for.
Sure.
But I was very enamored with all that, and he was like, "That stuff sucks. I'm a punk kid," and so it all worked out in the end because our two sensibilities blend kind of perfectly.
Totally. Well, you said you set up an animal rights like booth. Are you vegan? Or were you a vegan?
So I was at that time when I was 12 years old. I was in 8th grade. Same year.
That's
this was a very
inspiring.
pivotal year for me.
Wow.
Well, it wasn't exactly. It's a little bit sad in a weird and powerful way. But one of my 8th grade teachers handed out PETA pamphlets at school.
Really?
I was 12.
I can't believe they allowed that.
I don't think they would have. Maybe they don't know. I'm not sure what happened. And this was an agricultural area. I mean, we had 4-H and Future Farmers of America.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of these kids' families were farmers and are like school zone and everything. And so, she handed it to me. I went home that day. I was like, Mom, Dad, never eating meat again. And they were shocked because I love meat. And they're like, okay. And my parents are really practical and also very supportive. They're like, well, okay. I mean, if that's what you want to do, you have to learn to cook though. And you need to learn about nutrition because, we don't know any vegetarians. So you're going to have to make sure that you can be healthy.
Yeah. Getting enough protein and stuff.
Yeah. And I mean, at that point I was also like cooking dinner for the family a couple nights a week to help out and stuff like that. So, my go-to was like baked chicken breasts and mashed potatoes and canned green beans. And so I started making them like crumbled tofu chili and spaghetti. And, half the time I wouldn't tell my dad because he'd kind of forget and he'd eat it and he'd be like, Kelly, that was really great spaghetti tonight. And I'd be like, it's fake. Like you just ate fake spaghetti. But I think they thought it'd last like, a couple months. And I'm a pescatarian now.
Wow. So since 8th grade, you haven't had like beef or chicken? Well,
the asterisk right there is that when I was pregnant, I promised my husband and my parents and my in-laws, they were like, but how can you be a vegetarian and create a child inside of you? But we have 2 children. And I was like, well, people in India do it all the time.
Yeah.
And, there are entire cultures that don't have to eat meat. I was like, I promise if I have the craving, I will. Like, no problem, guys. And I was like, it's never going to happen. It's never going to happen. And I was about 7 months pregnant with our first kid. We're living in downtown LA and there's a Sizzler there, like right by our apartment in Koreatown. We live at like Vermont and Wilshire.
Okay.
And so there's this like Koreatown Sizzler. And we would see the commercials all the time. So we had like antenna TV or whatever. And so late night, we were watching like, I don't remember, Saturday Night Live or something. A commercial popped up and it was for Sizzler. And I looked over to my husband, my bandmate, my partner and all I do.
Sure.
And I was like, Lewis, I want a steak tomorrow. And he's like, are you kidding me? I've been waiting for this day. And I was like, I don't think I'm kidding. I might wake up and be like, oh, that sounds disgusting. And I woke up and I was like, are you taking me out for steak dinner tonight?
Oh, nice.
And I was kind of nervous because I was like, it might make me sick. It's been like a really long time. It had been 14 years since I had like meat.
Wow.
And we went to this really cool little steak place. Oh, I can't think of what it's called right now because my brain's going to fail me.
You didn't end up going to the Sizzler?
We did. No, I was like, if I'm going to eat a steak, it's not going to be that quality of steak.
Yeah.
It's going to kill me. I'm going to text him while we're talking right now because I have to know.
Yeah.
But we like Vermont, Wilshire, where we live. It's kind of like old Hollywood, the old Brown Derby's there.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's this old little like dark red kind of like velvet boothy steak place. And I went in there and I was like, I told the waitress, I was like, listen, I haven't had a steak in like 14 years. I want it to be like a kind of thin steak it's not super well cooked, but I don't want to see any red on my plate or I might get kind of grossed out. I'm not really sure if I could even eat this. And she's like, okay, don't worry. I know what to do. And it came out and I ate the whole thing. And like, I practically inhaled it. And then I was like, great, now I'm going to be sick. And I was absolutely fine. I woke up the next day and I felt fine. I felt great.
Oh, really?
Kind of rejuvenated.
Yeah.
Yeah. It didn't give me, like, my stomach was completely fine. I was like, maybe my body was craving it for some reason.
Yeah. I was vegetarian for 12 years also. And after I got married and stuff, I'm like, yeah, I'm just going to do this. And I ate a Jack in the Box taco and it was so good.
Oh, God.
But my stomach kind of, it didn't really... I didn't like get sick or anything, but it was like I felt weird for the remainder of the evening, and then like the next day I was fine, and then I just kept doing it. And ever since I eat meat now. But
yeah, it's funny. I have a cousin of mine who he became a vegetarian around the same time, and then he went over and he lived in Vietnam for a while, and he moved around in Asia for a while, didn't eat any meat. He came back, went to a New Jersey diner with his family, and he went to order, and he was like, I need a chili dog. And they all looked at him in shock, and they're like, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
And that was the end of it. He was like, I'm not going to do that anymore. And I don't know why, but yeah. So yeah, long story short, I've had like 3 steaks over my 2 pregnancies. And the steak place was called Taylor's. It's on 8th Street in Los Angeles.
Taylor's on 8th in LA. Next time I'm over there, I have to check it out.
Yeah, it's really cool. You would have no idea it's there. There's like no markings outside that would be like, hey, nice, cool steak place.
Yeah.
But inside's really awesome.
Nice. Very cool. Well, I want to get into your music career. So you met your husband in 8th grade, and which is awesome. How did you guys start playing music together?
Our last year of college, we ended up going to the same school together.
Was that planned or just?
Well, I was like, this is the only school that I could possibly go to. It was a liberal arts school. It was like the honors school of the Florida system. There were like no grades. It was very, very liberal.
Uh-huh.
He got into Rice and a couple other like really good schools. He had like interviews with Duke that he blew off because he wanted to go with me, which did cause a little strife. Yeah, he's like, no, I pick you. I'm gonna follow you wherever you go. and so yeah, we ended up going to this school called New College. He has a neurobiology degree, I have a biology degree.
Oh wow!
And at the very end of college, one of his friends was like, hey, I want to start a band. You know how to play guitar, right? And long story short, I was like, well, I can be in the band, right? Because I know how this ends up, we're like 20 years old, you're going to join a band, you're going to be a rock star, and I'm just going to be gone. Like, you're going to forget all about me, which was ridiculous. But, there is a little truth to that. And they were like, would you really want to be in the band? And so I played rhythm guitar and I sang backing vocals until our bass player quit. And then I played bass and learned all the songs, and we became the Dollyrots, moved to LA.
Were you guys called the Dollyrots when you first formed, when you were in Florida?
No. So we were called Danger Kitty for one show.
Okay.
And No Chef for most of the time. And it was like a stupid inside joke because we were nerds and we would volunteer at Model UN. And there's just this long, really boring story about the cook for the staff at Model UN. It's really dumb. So we were called No Chef, and then Danger Kitty, and then the Dollyrots.
Okay.
So we had played, I think, an entire 12 shows before we thought we were really good and should move to LA.
Oh,
and
wow.
that's what we did.
So
we were completely delusional.
And who moved? Just you and your husband, or your whole band?
And we took our drummer at the time too. His mom let us live at their house. So we graduated from college, and that summer she let us stay in their house. They had this really big house out in the country that was built to look exactly like the Bates Motel. Which was really creepy. Really creepy and awesome.
Yeah. What was is there a story behind that? They just decided, you know what? I want to build the Bates Motel here in Florida.
Yeah. So she had some settlement. She got polio from a vaccine. Like, I don't really remember the story, but it was like her dream house. And so we had the run of the attic. Yeah. And so we just spent that whole time. We were like, we're going to take a break. And then Lewis was like, I'm going to go to med school. And I was like, I'll go to grad school. We'll go to Berkeley. but all those plans kind of fell by the wayside when Bush became our president and 9/11 happened. And we were like, you know what, the world's going to end. Why don't we just be in a band?
Wow.
And
so that's the
what
reason,
we decided
huh?
to do.
Wow.
That is the reason.
That's very
Yeah.
interesting. And then you guys just did you have any, like, when you decided to go to LA, did you have like contacts there, or were you just going to drive there and see what happens?
We drove there with $3,000 that we had in savings from our wedding.
Mm-hmm.
And our drummer's aunt and uncle lived in Hemet, which is kind of
that's just north of
outside of LA.
Yeah, we're in San Diego, so I know that
there.
area. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So his aunt and uncle, his uncle was a trucker, so his aunt was home a lot, and they were okay with us staying for 2 weeks while we got on our feet.
Okay.
2 weeks was definitely not enough time. So we ended up, we moved in with an acquaintance from high school who had a studio apartment on Orange in Hollywood. It's right behind Mann's Chinese Theater.
Okay.
And we moved in there. I want to think it was about 2 weeks, but I'm afraid it was about a month.
All four of you? So it was you three plus the person that already currently lived there?
Yeah, plus our friend Jed. And just, the icing on the cake. Lewis and I we had like a menagerie at the time. I worked at a veterinary hospital, and I always would take creatures home, and it was kind of a rehab place. So we moved to LA with a 5-foot iguana, a prairie dog, a cat, a tarantula, and a scorpion.
Oh my gosh.
And and our musical equipment. And we were in a studio apartment. This is after living in our drummer's sweet aunt and uncle's houses.
Yeah.
It was terrible. And, this was pre-internet pretty much. So we were just calling numbers out of the weekly, and we finally got an apartment, Lewis and I did. And then we got our drummer an apartment in the basement of that building. And that's still where we have an apartment. It's on 7th Street in Koreatown. And
wow. So you're still there after all those years?
We're not.
Oh.
No, we have a house in Florida now, but we split time. So we go back and forth from Florida to there. There's no way we could have 2 kids in that.
Yeah, I was going to say, that's crazy if you're in the same place.
Yeah, we lived there until our first kid, who's 6 now, was about 6 months old, and then we moved to Florida. Yeah, so we got a nice setup. We got baby chicks. We've got a studio that's separate from the house, like a little back house studio. So I can do my radio show, and that's where we record our records. And then we
so you
email them.
Too.
We Dropbox them to our producer, and then we meet up for a week with our producer in Minnesota, this guy John Fields. He's worked with us since our first record, and spend a week together after we get the basic tracks together, and that's kind of how we've done it for 6 years now.
Oh wow.
3 albums. Yeah, 3 albums like that.
Wow, that's cool. So you can just do everything. Yeah, especially nowadays, you can just do everything from your own studio and send it out.
That's one thing. Yeah, I mean, with what's happening in the world right now, fortunately, we're very, very lucky, because if we don't leave the house, it's okay. I mean, our kids are getting a little bit lonely at times, but we don't exactly have time to homeschool a kindergartner.
Right.
We get lesson plans. Yeah. We get lesson plans at the beginning of the week, and we have daily schedules of what we're supposed to do with him. And it's a lot. It's been a little bit crazy. Today we had a parade where a bunch of the administrators and teachers drove through the neighborhood in their cars and waved to the kids. And
that's cool.
Our
that's
son,
really cool.
Yeah. He made a poster and he was waving, and I was like, I'm so glad I'm wearing sunglasses, because I was sobbing. I was like, this is so weird. It just sucks for them, but it's also pretty cool in some ways, We're getting to spend some really good time as a family, but yeah. Where are you guys?
We're in San Diego in South LA. So yeah, we've been kind of on lockdown for almost 3 weeks now. 3 weeks?
Yeah.
Almost. Yeah. But yeah, I feel even worse for the kids that are seniors in high school this year or something like that.
Oh my God,
can't probably graduate. What does that mean for, going to college or, prom and all that stuff? That's just, I couldn't imagine. That's awful.
I mean, the seniors in college that play sports. I mean, this was like their last year.
That
just kills me. Like the NCAA stuff. I was just.
Yeah,
I mean,
like people that now these kids that it could have been there. Like for us here in San Diego, it was a total bummer for the basketball team because it had been such a long time before the team was actually really good and they had a chance to do something, and like there was no tournament, and like it's been a wild couple months.
It is wackadoodle, dude.
So I want to go back to LA, and when you guys you moved out of your friend's studio and you got your own place. And so tell me about getting your first gigs in LA and then recording what became the Feed Me Pet Me EP.
Right. So we ended up getting jobs, and we were really, really lucky because we had fresh 4-year degrees. So my husband, he got a job at LabCorp, he's like filling pipettes, running tests all day. And I got a job at the California Science Center. I was in charge of the animal exhibit. So there were 3 of us, and it was awesome because the schedule was 4/10s. And I really only had to really work in the morning and then in the evening time to make sure all the animals were fed and cared for. Other than that, we were just kind of hanging out in the office doing not work, I'll just say. So it was the perfect gig for me. But we got those jobs after I worked at Robex and Barnes and Noble. I finally got that job. I forget to mention that sometimes. And Lewis, my husband,
you were just getting jobs to do what you could.
We were doing whatever we could. Yeah, like he actually the first job either of us got was doing door-to-door petitioning for things to put on the ballot, and so he would get like a quarter a signature, and then I started working for the company, and so I would stand outside of the Ralphs and the Trader Joe's at 3rd and Fairfax ish. Is that where it is? Okay, so and then they ended up like painting this little square, and if I left like the square, like it was the most it was very demeaning. People were so mean, but I was like, I need a quarter. Yeah. Like it was pretty much just give me your money. I was like, give me a signature. So and from that, we actually did learn about Little Ethiopia and our favorite restaurant, Mercado. So because one of our celebrations when we left that job was going out to dinner with all those people we would collect signatures with. Yeah. But anyway, we got our, like, in air quotes, real jobs at LabCorp and the Science Center. And so once we were like somewhat stable, we started going out to shows. So we would go to the gig, or what was it called? The Joint. Mm-hmm. The Joint was the first place that we would go. There was this band called Pillow of Wrongness, and they had these like nights with lots of bands. And so, we started going there. And then, when we could afford it, we would, go out to like bigger shows and stuff. But we figured the best way to meet people was to, just start going to shows. So that's what we did. I mean, sometimes we would literally just hang out outside of shows. And when people would come out to smoke, we would just be like pretending to be hanging out so we could like meet people.
Yeah. I was gonna say, it sounds like with that job, getting the signatures, it kind of like gave you like a experience in the kind of like guerrilla flyering and meeting people and trying to network. Yeah.
And I mean, that is literally how we did it too. It was completely like pretending to not be desperate, because people can see that from a mile away. It's like you have to pretend that everything's cool.
Sure.
And try to engage and interact. And so I feel like before we became musicians in LA, we became really good actors. And so that was step one.
Yeah.
But eventually, I don't even remember how we ended up getting this. I think it was through our drummer, Frank. We ended up getting a rehearsal space up in Burbank. It was called Nightingale Rehearsal Studio. So we got this tiny little room, and so we could finally play, because we hadn't been able to sit up and play loud, since we had moved there. It was probably 6 to 8 weeks, maybe a little bit longer after moving out there. And wow. we all just, we woke up, and from the second we woke up till like 3 or 4 in the morning, we just hustled. I mean, it was crazy. Thank God we were young, because there's no way we could have done it otherwise. And we worked as a team. Uh-huh. I mean, our drummer Frank helped us. We helped him. So yeah, I mean, we just did it. And a lot of it's a blur, you know. I wish that I could remember more detail.
Yeah.
But we got the rehearsal studio, and then that led to meeting musicians who helped us get gigs. And then, you know, as we could go to shows, we would go to the Joint, and then we would go to the gig. I do think, though, one of the very first shows we played was at the Whiskey.
Oh, that's cool.
Kind of, but the thing is, when we moved out there, it was when pay to play was pretty much the standard. We moved out in January of 2002. So, you know, the economy was kind of tanked, and I feel like the clubs were having a rough time. And so it was like, well, you got to pay to play. And so you're like, well, I guess that's what it's like in LA.
Yeah. Do you have to sell tickets or something? Is that,
yeah.
Don't they set it up where, like, if you don't sell a certain amount of tickets, you aren't gonna,
you don't play.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
We handed them $800 cash before they would let us load in.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, in 2002, when we had like not enough money to eat.
Yeah.
You know. But it was kind of beautiful at the same time.
Yeah. But yeah, and you got to play the Whiskey, so that's cool.
Yeah. We eventually got to play the Whiskey without paying first. But I think they made the opening band sell tickets. So
jeez, yeah.
Yeah, so it's a little shitty. But then I think the most important time, the turning point for our band was, oh, Siri thought I said seriously, but my Siri decided to chime in. I don't know. But we found this place called Mr. T's Bowl in Highland Park through one of Lewis's coworkers at LabCorp in West LA. And so her name was Jasmine. She's like, hey, I'm going to go watch some bands play. You guys should come with me. And we're like, oh God, how much is it? It's like $4. And we're like, we are in.
Yeah.
So Mr. T's Bowl in Highland Park, this cool old bowling alley. We walk in there, and it was all we had dreamed of. You know, it was like these alternative kids that, you know, were very influenced by the 90s and punk rock. And, you know, it was kind of pop rock, pop punk rock, you know, It was just perfect. And so we met all these people in that scene, and we started playing shows together. And the guy, Mike TV, was the main booker. And then through him, you know, the scene kind of flourished, and we would start going to other venues. And then there was this girl named Cooper. It was Cooper and Johnny. So the bands were called Bang Sugar Bang and Silver Needle. And they started this thing called Kiss or Kill at the Garage in Silver Lake. And that scene, we started playing shows every Tuesday. And so there was this core group of bands that would just kind of rotate. We would rotate who would open, who would close. I want to say there were like 15-ish bands, you know, that would just kind of, we would play. If we weren't playing, we would show up. You know, we would all support all the time. And
that's really cool.
Yeah, and it was good. I mean, like, and it moved when the Garage closed. We moved to Zen Sushi, and it was always like a kind of smallish club, and it was a lot of people that, you know, already knew each other, but a lot of outside people would come in too. It's how we met the Muffs.
Wow.
Trying to think of like the other bigger bands that we got to meet through that. But people of name, you know, started kind of coming around, but then the record label started coming around, and then, you know, DJs for the radio, not like Waka Waka.
Yeah.
They started coming around. And so then as scenes do, you know, people started getting competitive, and it kind of turned, and there's a documentary about it. It was on Netflix. I'm not sure if it is anymore. It's called In Heaven There Is No Beer. But we were the first band to get signed. We released our own record, thanks to a random audition that we went on. We got a Hewlett-Packard commercial.
That's crazy.
Random audition.
Where did you see the audition? Like, how did you get the audition?
So those gigs that we did at first, remember, at the Joint?
Yeah.
When we were playing those gigs, we met a couple, Marina and Mitch. And Marina worked at Windswept Pacific, which was a pretty cool small boutique publishing company. And her husband, Mitch, was a producer. And so Mitch recorded that first demo, the Beauty Freak Show, Feed Me, Pet Me. What was on it? Feed Me, Pet Me, Jackie Chan.
Uh-huh.
I don't remember what the other songs were, but our first real demo we recorded with him, and then Marina passed it on to the publishing company. And so one of the people at that publishing company, John Anderson, he sent us out for that audition.
Okay.
And we got the Hewlett Packard ad, which led to us getting the publishing deal, which led to us recording the commercial at Capitol Record Studio B, which is where we met our producer, John Fields. He was a very young producer, was just like the guy manning the mixing board that day.
Uh-huh.
So we recorded the commercial in about a half hour.
Wow.
The Packard people are like, well, we booked it out until midnight. If you want to play around in here, you're welcome to. So
That's cool.
So John Fields, who was running the session, he meets us in there are these little sliding doors in between the main room and the live room.
Uh-huh.
And he caught me and Lewis at one point. He looked us straight in the eye, very seriously. It was our first sentence. He's like, please tell me you have an album to record today. And we were like, you have no idea. We absolutely have an album to record today.
Wow.
He was like, good. He's like, do this fast. And so we did the commercial as fast as we could. And then they left and we recorded our first record, Eat My Heart Out.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So we released that ourselves in the Kiss or Kill environment. That little scene.
And you guys got to do that just on pretty much because Hewlett Packard paid for the whole night.
Yeah. Don't tell Hewlett Packard.
Oh, of course not.
But yeah. No,
but John Fields was cool enough to say, you know what? Did he have to be?
He's like, I'll stick around.
Yeah, he said he'll stick around. That's awesome.
Yeah.
And I'm just looking at his resume.
Session,
it's ridiculous.
He's incredible.
Yeah.
I mean, he's, we joke that he's the other Dollyrot, and the way that George Martin shaped the Beatles,
Sure.
John Fields has shaped our band. I mean, we're friends too. I mean, we've been FaceTiming a lot since we've all been shut in.
Yeah.
He's in Minnesota, but he just, at this point, we don't even have to talk, when we're creating music together, and it's just a really, really good creative relationship.
That's really cool.
It's cool, but yeah, it was just. Our entire start was just that whole luck meets preparation thing. We worked so hard every day at our day jobs, and then every night we'd go play music or go to a show. And, we were playing LA, Fullerton, San Diego, almost weekly we would do that.
Uh-huh.
And, we still all worked full time. We rehearsed all the time.
Mm-hmm.
One important component of all this that I kind of skipped over, that's one of the best stories of how our band started, though, was when we were driving from Florida to California. I had a Toyota station wagon. Our drummer had his van,
Mm-hmm.
and then Lewis's car was in Mexico, which is kind of a long story. It was from when we drove to LA to see if we could move there in December of that year.
Okay.
We were driving back, and our friend's dad was the consul general in Juarez. And so
wow.
we were trying to we were trying to sleep for free at a friend's dad's house.
Juarez,
so we went into
the most
Juarez.
dangerous part of Mexico.
Yeah. And this was in 2002. So anyway, we get into Juarez, and Lewis's car died. We put Mexican gas in there, and we think maybe that's what happened.
Yeah.
I don't know. Anyway, and this was 3 days before Christmas. The car
Oh
died.
my
Anyway,
gosh.
so we leave his car in Juarez, and we Greyhound home. This is before we left or whatever. So anyway, we ended up having to pick up Lewis's car. But when we got to Texas, we got to Houston, and we picked up a weekly. We were at a gas station,
Mm-hmm.
and we looked, and we were like, oh my God, the Breeders are playing in Houston tonight. The Fitzgeralds.
Wow.
And we had never seen the Breeders, but they were a huge band. Us, the Pixies, the Breeders, Nirvana, Vaselines, that whole thing,
Kim Deal, is just
Bikini
insane.
Kill.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I was like, you guys, I have to go to the show. We were sleeping in our cars, whatever. And we got there, and it was sold out. And I went up to one of the guys at the door, and I was in tears. I was like, you have no idea like, I have to see this show tonight, please. I know it's sold out and I don't even have any money. I can give you $10 if you let us in. And he just looked at the three of us, and we must have looked like crazy kids. He's like, God, just go in. And so we got to go in and see the Breeders. And then after the show, their bus was parked right outside or whatever. They're super non-pretentious. And so we're just kind of standing out there wondering if we might get to meet them. And we're like, it's not going to happen. And then their roadie guys start loading all their gear out, put in the bus. And he strikes up a conversation. He's like, hey, you guys waiting for the band? And they're like, yeah, we don't want to bother anybody, but if we could say hi. He's like, oh, they'd be happy to meet you. And we kind of told them the story. And then they're like, yeah, and we've got our pets in the car. So, we're going to leave and just check on them real quick. And then we'll come back and make sure everything's okay. And we had cracked all the windows, of course. They had water and food. And it was like a traveling zoo. And so he was like, you got to pull your car around. The girls are going to want to meet those pets. And so we pull my station wagon up in front of their bus. And then he brings the girls out, and Kim and Kelly are fawning over our little menagerie in my station wagon. And then we told them what we were doing. They're like, moving to LA. And they're like, do you know anybody? We're like, no. And they're like, okay, well, you know us now. Wow. And they're like, get Wolfie's number. Wolfie's their roadie. And they're like, we'll help you out if we can. And so we're like, yeah, it's never going to happen. We've heard all about LA people. And we're like, we're not going to get our hopes up. And so Wolfie, their roadie, gives us his phone number. We get to LA and he's like, call me when you get there. Don't forget, call me. Mm-hmm. And so we did call him eventually. And I think we weren't even in the apartment. We didn't have jobs. It was in those first few weeks. Uh-huh. Breeders were playing. He's like, come see the band. And, they gave us backstage passes, hung out with Breeders, met them. And then so cool. Eventually they were like, he ended up texting us after we had been at Nightingale, that other rehearsal studio. He's like, hey, the rehearsal space across from us opened up in East LA at Francisco. You guys want to move in across from us? And we were like, well, how much is it? And it was half the price of the Burbank one. And so we were like, we're in.
Yeah.
So we moved in across from the Breeders, and they would if they heard us practicing, they just come in and sit on the couch and watch us practice. And
that's gotta be so surreal.
So surreal and amazing. But they let us open for them a number of times, and they would just talk to us, ask if they could help. We got to go to parties and things, and mm-hmm. and it was just really cool. It was a very low key East LA. They were in East LA too, so it was going out for tacos with Wolfie. And on 4th of July, it's we didn't have family there, so mm-hmm. We'd get included in things here and there. But yeah, it was really cool. So between Kiss or Kill and the Breeders and the Hewlett Packard thing, those were kind of what created what happened after that, which was Because I'm Awesome, which is a song. It was a hit song without being a hit song. We made, a really good chunk of money on publishing for that. Uh-huh. And that's what we toured on for years and years. We just toured and toured and toured and toured. And eventually we're on Blackheart Records. And then eventually we had enough fans to go completely independent.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
So when all that was happening, how did you guys you guys were signed to Lookout Records, which is at one point was a great label, a great indie, with Green Day and Bob Ivy and all those bands on it. And how did they approach you? So we
self-released that first record, the Hewlett Packard one, the Kiss or Kill one called Eat My Heart Out. And Indie 103 was a really cool new label in LA at the time. So Rodney Bingenheimer started playing it on a show on
Rodney
K-Rock.
On the Rock.
And then, yeah. And then Indie 103 picked up one of the songs, and then, we got to do some cool interviews on air with Indie 103. And, we were opening for the Breeders, and then, we started playing bigger shows, and we started getting crazier. We started jumping into the drums, and, I don't know. It grew very organically. I mean, we were still out there flyering every show, making every single person we had ever met in LA go to every show. It was very grassroots, but, I think it came from a place of genuine excitement and and love of what we were doing and love of the bands we were playing with. And, you know, it was a very honest, youthful, cool thing that happened. And so, you know, I feel like we've kind of kept with that throughout our career. And I think that's how we still have one.
Mm-hmm. I mean, it looks like you guys are constantly, you know, working and doing stuff. You have, from what I'm seeing here, just even from like 04 to 06, you guys opened for like you said, the Breeders but the Queers and Soul Asylum and Paramore. Like, that's crazy lineup of people right there. And that was so early on.
Yeah. And I mean, I think part of it, we grew such a real fan base that's why, like, Lookout picked up the record after we self-released it, because like clearly we were doing something on our own.
Yeah.
You know, and that's the thing I try to tell young bands. I'm like, just do it. Like, do it as hard and good as you can. And if it's good, then somebody's going to help you out, you know, but you can't do it half-assed and think, oh, somebody's going to think I'm special and, you know, do this with me. 'Cause it's just not the way it works. And when that happens, I feel like there's no longevity to that sort of career. You know, you got to do it the hard way.
Yeah,
you know,
totally.
Which young bands do not want to hear that, but you know, it's true. You know, the people that have been our fans from the beginning, a lot of them are still there right now. And it's because we know them. You know, it wasn't formulated. You know, when Lookout put out our record had already been out for months in LA, and we had already done our first 2 US tours, you know, and so then, you know, Lookout picked it up because they could see that we were going to work our butts off.
Yeah. You guys were hungry.
You know, and so, and unfortunately Lookout folded right when we were getting ready to make our second record. But we had saved up enough money from like our day jobs. We borrowed some money from family members, and we booked time, and we recorded a real demo, awesome demo. And then Lookout helped us go out on Warped Tour. So we did the Kevin Says stage.
Oh, cool.
We did like 6 weeks of Warped Tour, something like that. Hop in between what was it called? I want to say it was like the Girls Garage stage or something. But we like hopped around Sheer Girl, Kevin Says, and some other stage. Some days we didn't play, but we'd still set up our merch booth. But we hustled.
Yeah, but you were on the whole Warped Tour? That's so cool.
No, we weren't. We just showed up.
Oh, wow.
And now that it's over, I can say that out loud. But I mean, we would just show up. And, you know, a lot of the time we'd get to play, and we worked. We'd be like, we'll set up stages if we could play, you know, and that's kind of how it happened. I mean, we truly hustle.
Funny. That's so funny.
Yeah.
Wait, wait, I have a question about this. So you would so if the Warped Tour was because back when it would go from like San Diego or Chula Vista, and they would go to like they played LA and Irvine. I mean, there's Anaheim, I'm sure. Like there was about 4 or 5 dates within Southern California. Is that what you guys would just show up to those shows?
Well, we had like, I can't remember exactly, but like we would have like 5 days on Sheer Girl, and then we'd have like a few days of no shows, and then we'd have a few days in a tent. And then it would be like some days on Kevin Says, and then some more days in the tent. And so it didn't make sense because this was moving every day further and further across the country. So we had to keep going. So we would do acoustic sets, or we would just do signings, or we would just set up merch.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And I mean, Kevin Lyman, he's an awesome dude.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we were not the only band to hustle like that. There were a lot of bands that would play outside of Warped Tour in the parking lot, you know, before they could get inside of Warped Tour. Right. I mean, we are definitely not the only band. But yeah, that's how we met Joan Jett, though. The summer that we super hustled the Warped Tour. Mm-hmm. It was when Joan Jett was on, and we had our demo for Because I'm Awesome, which was pretty much done. That record was almost complete. And the second to last day, we were in Salt Lake City, And then the last day of Warped Tour that year was in Denver.
Mm-hmm.
And I was dragging my feet. I gave one CD to Laura Jane Grace.
Oh, of Against Me?
Yeah.
Okay.
And then I went and I watched Joan that night, and she walked off the stage. And I mean, we had been on the tour like for weeks and weeks, and I was just, I couldn't bring myself to like go talk to her, but it's like my feet started walking. I was holding the CD, and I just started like spouting nonsense at her, pretty much like a nervous weirdo, I think. Yeah. And I ended up like stuttering, being like, I'm in the Dollyrots, and like I handed her the CD, and she's like, oh man, I've been watching you all summer. I love your band. I was like, well, we really need a label to put this record out on. It's almost done, but look out, folded. And she's like, oh, cool, I'll take a listen. And she walked away. I'm like shaking. I was like, she's never going to listen to that. So then after No Effects set, which was maybe 20 minutes after that, I walked up to Fat Mike, and I was like, hey, it was me and our drummer, Amy, at the time. Mm-hmm. Me and Amy walked up. They were like, hey, we want to give you our demo. And he's like, oh, Dollyrots. Like he knew who we were at that point too. Mm-hmm. There weren't a lot of girl-fronted bands either. So it was a benefit to us. We stood out, we were playing kind of punk rock, and a lot of bands weren't.
Yeah.
And he convinced us to ride the bus that night from Salt Lake to Denver, which is pretty much the longest bus ride you could ever imagine being on with No Effects.
Fat Mike. So you got to take No Effects' bus?
So we had to take it with Mike.
Yeah, that's awesome, though. They invited you on the bus.
Yeah.
Oh, man, that's so cool.
Unfortunately for Lewis and Fuzzy, because we were a party of 4 on that tour, which was totally brutal. We were in a van, not a bus. So Lewis and Fuzzy had to drive all the way from Salt Lake to Denver, just the 2 of them, overnight. While me and Amy were on the bus doing God knows what.
Funny.
But we did give Mike the CD. He blared it on the bus, and I pretty much remember him being like, "Man, you need to be more of a dude. Stop being such a girl, whatever." I don't remember. That was pretty much the gist of it. And so the next day, I had a complete meltdown. I was like, I have no idea what I'm doing with my life. Can't believe, spend a Warped Tour, got this record, we got no label. Now I got to go back to my stupid job. Yeah. Like, it was like a serious come down after that. We go home, and about a month later, Blackheart Records called, and they put out the record.
Wow.
Yeah.
What was that called?
They actually listened to that CD.
Yeah.
It was super cool. It was Carrie Ann from Blackheart Records. Kenny Laguna is Joan's longtime producer and manager, and his daughter Carrie Ann runs the label with them.
That's
and
cool.
She called, and she's like, hey, we really love this. Kenny would like to do a couple production things on it. And, then we'd like to put it on Blackheart Records. And we were like, sign us up, send us the paperwork. We'll sign it and send it back. So we did. And we put out 2 great records with Blackheart. And then that was right around the time when Amanda Palmer started using Kickstarter.
Okay.
And it was right around the time when Lewis and I are like, if we're ever going to have a family, we might need to start thinking about it now.
Uh-huh.
And so then we did a Kickstarter, and with Blackheart's blessing, like, they totally understood. I mean, we're still really friendly with them. I was talking to Carrie Ann today. But, it just made more sense financially, because as much as the band is our creative baby, it's our home business too.
Sure.
So,
totally.
And we transitioned to that kind of platform.
And is that when you put out Arrested Youth?
Yeah. So the Arrested Youth label was born out of that. Yeah. So we put out, our first one was Barefoot and Pregnant. That was the Kickstarter record. And then we started using Pledge Music. We did a live album and DVD. And then we did an EP. And then a few more records after that. I get confused now that I have kids. Like, I have no idea what the timeline is after that point. Yeah. But yeah, so then just started putting them out, and Lewis records and engineers it all at our home studio, and it's fields, and we finish it up.
That's awesome. That's so cool.
But now we have aligned ourselves with Wicked Cool Records, and we put out the last record with them. It's Stevie Van Zandt's label.
Oh yeah, from wow. From
E Street Band.
Yeah, E Street Band, Bruce Springsteen.
Yeah.
So how did you get connected with him? And the Sopranos.
It was Blackheart Records. Yeah. Our song "Because I'm Awesome" was the coolest song in the world on his station, Underground Garage, when that record came out for that year.
Oh.
The fans vote every year for like the coolest song in the world. There's the coolest song in the world every week. And at the end of the year, fans vote for the song of the year. And our song "Because I'm Awesome" got it.
Wow.
And so
That's really
we got
cool.
to be even way back then. I want to say it was like 2008 or something. But then we kind of reconnected in the last few years. We were out on tour, and you know, they saw that we were putting out music independently, and they're like, "You want to just do a 7-inch, you know, just for fun?" So we put out a 7-inch, and we put out another one, and then we did our last record with them.
That's amazing.
And now I'm a DJ on Underground Garage.
Oh, is he still doing that show? Is that on XM or something?
Yeah.
Serious?
Yeah, Channel 21. I'm the morning host. I do from 4 to 8 a.m. every single day.
Really?
Yeah.
That's really awesome.
Yeah. So I'm the morning show by myself.
Who would you say your biggest or your greatest advocates in your music career have been?
Ooh. So I mentioned John Anderson earlier. So John Anderson worked at Windswept Pacific, which is our first publishing company. And he and at his time, his assistant was this guy, Brad Rains, who's gone on to be like this awesome record exec. But the two of them really, really put our band out there in film and TV licensing. And I think because of that, you know, Blackheart Records also, they really, really worked on our band. They wanted our band out there. They did a top 40 radio campaign. They did college radio, you know, and I think between like Blackheart Records and then John Anderson and Brad Rains, like our band got to reach so many people that we couldn't possibly reach touring, which is, I mean, what is a band in control of? Like, we can make music and we can tour, but the delivery of the music is really in other people's hands.
Yeah.
And so,
totally.
you know, it was in those early days, you know, like Lookout Records, they tried. I mean, our point person, Jeff Oppenheimer, he honestly was an incredible advocate for our band. He's the reason we got to play with the Queers and get to know Screechy Weasel. And, you know, he definitely put us out there. But the Blackheart Records and the Windswept Pacific Publishing is what helped us reach the next level. And by that, I just mean reach that many more people. We were on like a Kohl's Back to School commercial. We were on the Hewlett Packard commercial. We got to do on-screen stuff for ABC Greek. We were in one of the
really?
Brave commercials. Yeah, I mean, like we were on CSI New York. I was an actor in CSI New York, which is ridiculous because none of us in our band could act our way out of a box, really. I mean, we can pretend we're a solid band and hand out flyers, but past that, like being in a murder show, like it was a stretch. But
were you like a band in the show or something?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
So any listeners, you can watch. It's CSI New York. The episode is called "Stuck on You," and our band was called the Rough Sex, like SECTS. But I convinced them that because of artistic integrity, I really needed to be performing my own songs, which I don't know why they agreed to it even, but they let us play our own songs. And I was like, you know, I know that the drummer was the actual actress and my bass was the murder weapon and whatever. Like the drummer, her name's Shelly. She's awesome. So our current drummer was like, well, she's going to feel left out. She can play guitar. Can she be the guitarist in the band? And whatever. They let the whole band be on the show.
That's
they let us play our own music. And I got like a co-starring credit.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like it was ridiculous. But honestly, I feel like I don't know that we've had one best advocate. I feel like at every turn, you know, people have really stepped up to help us move forward. I mean, I could list like 100 people that have worked really hard with us and for us. And, you know, even our drummers, like people joke because our band's had a whole bunch of drummers, but it's because we've been a band for a long time.
Yeah.
And, you know, people's lives change. People want to settle down and have a family. You know, people change gears. They don't want to tour in a van in a punk band anymore. And, our life has changed over and over again. And, it's been our crew's been steady for the last couple of years. We have a pretty comfortable touring situation now, and, it's really cool. But I gotta say, like, we've just been really, really fortunate at every turn. I feel like we've had nothing but help every time we turn around.
Yeah. Well, that's great. I mean, it's awesome that you were able to make that leap and just say, you know what, we have degrees, but we're gonna move to LA and we're gonna pursue music, and it worked out for you.
Oh man,
that's
I wouldn't say that we weren't completely freaked out and crying a lot, but yeah,
look, yeah, I mean,
I'm glad that we did it.
20 years later or so, you know, you're still doing it. That's amazing.
Yeah, it's really cool. But it wasn't without the help of people. I mean, even when Lewis was working at LabCorp and I was working at the Science Center, like our coworkers, when we would leave for a 6-week tour, our coworkers would pick up the slack for our shift so so that no one would have to be hired.
Yeah, they would let you go on like a leave for that long?
They would give us like 6 to 8 weeks over and over. And they would all work extra for us so that when we came home, we would have jobs because they wanted it to work. Like it was fun for them too. They would come to our shows, but we had such a great community of people in every aspect of it, and our families too. Like I joke about us being like the biggest disappointments ever to our families. But, once we were on TV one time, after that point, they're like, okay, maybe we can support this crazy thing you're doing. But
that kind of solidified it, that validated for them, seeing you on TV.
Yeah, they're like, all right, maybe you're not crazy. Like, we don't like the music, but apparently someone does.
Someone's listening to it. Yeah, that's amazing. Well, Kelly, thank you so much for chatting with me. And I have one more question for you if you have the time.
Sure.
I want to know what advice you have for aspiring artists.
Oh, man, just write music. Because right now, my regular advice is to go out and play if it means, doing open mic night or, local shows, getting in a van, touring, eating peanut butter and jelly for 2 meals a day and beer for the other one. It's really about working, and that's not a popular piece of advice because it's not the easy thing, but it's not about winning a contest or going on a TV show and getting famous. It's about making art that people are going to like and putting yourself out there and getting better and better and better, as a human in the world, because I feel like traveling helps you to understand other people, other cultures, and it helps you to write better music because it's not as insular. But I think you gotta keep writing music. If you can record music, I think that's a really cool tool that wasn't really available before now as easily. But it's even easier to write music and record your own music and get better at doing that now. I think you just got to practice your craft, and no matter what, you got to try and be yourself. Don't copy other people. And, eventually you'll find yourself.